I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off-road. The guy managed the group. He was like, what are you doing in this beautiful car? I'm like, I'm going off-road. He's like, are you sure? Because you can use one of ours. And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
Hi, Nathan. Welcome to the James Altucher Companion Podcast. To everyone listening out there, Nathan and I decided to do this podcast. I call it the Companion Podcast is because we sort of just want to summarize what we learned from James, that he learned from the guest, that the guest learned from their own life experience. Does that make sense, Nathan?
That sounds pretty meta.
It is meta. Like, I have heard someone make a joke about a podcast trend nowadays. It's like, hey, you know, there's a podcast out there. This person learned this thing from that person that learned that thing from that person that did that thing. So it's a meta podcast, you know.
It sounds like we talked about during the Side Hustle Fridays when James was talking newsletters, and how one of the Substacks was just like a newsletter that was the highlights of the other newsletters that he subscribes to because he has so many.
Yeah, I feel like people just doesn't want to waste time to listen to the full-length podcast or newsletter anymore. Like, you just want to know what's the 5 points that you want to take away from a newsletter or the podcast, and then you actually want the 1 point from the 5 point from the podcast or the newsletter.
So one of our listeners is going to have to make their own podcast that recaps our companion podcast, and then we'll all be set.
I wonder if they would call the Companion's Companion Podcast.
The Companion's Companion.
Yeah. You know what they say? What's better than one kid? Having 2 kids, right?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean, not all the times. All right. Let's get down to it. Nathan and I will probably do this once a month because this is our first episode, so we can go as far back as to December or November. And then we would tell you the episode's number as well. So if you hear this episodes and you'll be like, hey, I missed the episodes, I want to go back and listen again, feel free. Or you're like, oh, I heard the episode before, but I want to go back and listen again, see what I missed. You know, feel free to go back and listen to it again. So, Nathan, you go first.
I'll start with the most recent episode we released as of this recording, which was our 2-part with Cal Fussman. Oh. It was great, and that was a very meta podcast in a way because it was a lot of Cal telling Larry stories, leading us to listen to the Cal podcast eulogizing Larry, where he had more clips of Larry telling his own stories.
If anyone that's listening to this, you know, like a month from now, you know, the episode's number is 688 and 689. Yeah, it's a great podcast. Like, I always love Cal Fussman. I always love the way he tells stories. And Larry King is such a good storyteller too. So you are listening to Cal Fussman telling the stories of Larry King's stories. It's crazy. They talk about the origin story of Larry King too. I didn't know. I mean, Larry King was like was when Larry King got into a radio show and stuff. I don't think I was even born. It was
No.
what, the 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah, it was before our time, before James was born, even.
Before James. Yeah, and I love in the episodes that Cal Fussman always mention and emphasize that Larry has this motto: it's every step back is a step forward.
James and Cal have known each other for a long time, and any interview to listen with him is a treat because he's such a great storyteller. An editor-at-large for Esquire for all these years. He writes on every topic. But James didn't know much about Larry going into this. So James is normally very prepped on a topic, and he knows Cal very well, but he didn't know Larry King very well. So he was hearing a lot of these stories for the first time. And one of the few things that James did know about Larry King, which he had brought up recently, was the time Seinfeld had gone on Larry King.
Right.
So that had been kind of a caricature view of Larry King. James put that forth and said, Larry's his legend. He makes these kind of like famous for these gaffes. And Cal was like, that's not a gaffe. That was his conversation style. And here's the whole way that he got into it, from cultivating this very conversational style.
Right. And what intrigued me the most is, I've worked with James for a long time. So I always ask James about like, what's the difference between Larry King and Howard Stern, right?
Mm-hmm.
James will always mention to me, always tell me like, oh yeah, I like Howard Stern, blah, blah, blah. And then, I like Larry King too, but sometimes it doesn't seem like, like he prepared enough when you interview the guest. But the craziest thing is that we didn't know the whole story about it. And Cal just told us that, okay, so apparently for that show, they don't have a producer, they don't have an engineer. So they would just book a guest. Like Larry wouldn't even know until the last minute, like probably like right before the show went on, who is the guest. So Larry has no time to prep. And then, that sort of became, the show and the style where he just go on and just have conversations. Sometimes he might not know, anything about the guest, but because he went in not knowing anything, he managed to ask the most interesting questions. So what's your big takeaway for with that two parts? Like, would you consider like that two parts, or would you consider that like a one big two parts? You know what I mean? For me, I feel like it's a two parts. Like, like of course when we were recording this, that episode, it was that two episodes, it was one big chunk, and then we cut it up into two parts. But I do think that it is a two parts rather than one big chunk, one part, because it felt like the first part it's all about Larry King and like how Cal as a friend was telling Larry's story, and the second part it's almost like Cal Fussman's origin story in a sense that how he became such a good storyteller.
Wow. It really did cut together that way in the end. I didn't notice that the first time I was listening through. It was one long 2.5 hour episode with breaks and show pauses. It was funny how it landed because every single time it was James asking, but how did you end up having breakfast with Larry King every day for a decade? And every time it was like Cal kept going off on these massive tangents, and then this was his big string. And then we come back from commercial and it's like, okay, so how did you get here? And then and he's like, okay, but I'll tell you this one important thing. And then finally on that, what ended up being the second half of the show, he started giving those answers. But it was about like the third or fourth time James had asked that question.
Right.
It was such this enigma of like, did they live together? Was this like an Eddie Van Halen thing?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So sometimes I think maybe because Kyle is also a podcaster, right? So he knows how he can interweave all the story, and he know how to put out a cliffhanger.
Oh yeah, he played us. Yeah, he made it. He made that show. He made that go together like butter.
Yeah, it's almost felt like we are watching a Netflix show.
My big takeaway from the Cal Fussman two-part is that you get a double master class in interviewing, because I learned so much all about Larry King's ethos, how his particular style was honed over a 50-year career, and then compounded with hearing Cal pitch his own podcast and tell the stories, and the way that James interviews and how Cal interviews and how Larry interviews, and all of them came from different media, James from from books, and Cal from magazines, and Larry from radio and TV.
They should just submit that to the masterclass.com.
Mm-hmm.
Just have that, yeah. For me, I think Carl's always say like every step back is a step forward. So I'm not a smart guy. I'm really not a smart guy. So I listen to stuff very literally. So like that theme just happened over and over again, and then I just look back at my life that do happen to me. Like like my studio closed, so that was a step back for me, and then I get to work with James.
It was another step back.
That was a 2-step back right there. God damn it. It's because of James. No, I'm just joking. But working for James is definitely a step forward for me, a huge step forward because I got to, meet you. I met you through James.
Aw.
Yeah, the best podcast engineer out there. And then after that, I met Steve, and then I learned so much about networking, just learned so much about myself as well. So that's a huge step forward for me. So like that's why I learned, like every step back is a step forward.
Beautiful.
Right. So Nathan, what's your second favorite?
Something I've really enjoyed in the past few months are the new sub-series that we've been working on. So you and James started like one of the solo podcasts, or as a James and Jay kind of podcast, the My Favorite Things.
Right.
And also we've put out, it feels like 20, 30, 40 episodes with Brian Keating about all the theories about the potential beginnings of the universe. And also, like, I feel like you and I have been learning how to create sub-series, and especially you've been working on actually, naming series and putting artwork and stuff up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, because like, I feel like, sometimes you just get bored doing the same thing over and over. And I just like to spice things up. And I'm the kind of person like to work things within a theme. We have the Side Hustle Friday that we put up in, in November, October. And I'm like, well, we can have more theme like that, but maybe like my favorite things. This is favorite thing that James loved, or Brian Keating one with the universe. I actually kind of enjoyed the one with Brian Keating because every time she comes on, yeah, even though they're gonna talk about the how the universe gonna start, or is Big Bang happen or not, all of a sudden they just went on these weird tangents about publishing, about business idea, about books idea. So that I think that's very interesting to me because like they just see like how to master talks about ideas.
It also gives a really interesting glimpse into what James is like outside of podcast life,
Right.
because he's constantly looking at new technologies and new ways to get messages out there, or he's been so active recently and just kind of putting, I know he said he burnt out, but just really doing like so many different experiments at the same time.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of burnout and skip the line, like I felt like he do experiments all the time, but I felt like what happened right now is he actually do a lot more experiment on chess. I mean, this is breaking news out there. Like for people that hasn't seen James on social media or wherever. So this is what happened in his life. So he do a lot more experiment in chess right now. So we did talk about that in let me see what episode is that. That's episodes was it it's one of my favorite things series. It's called The Learning Technique. So what happened is in the episode he break down like the learning techniques that he used to improve his chess rating. That all happened because he got burned out from social media, from the article New York City is that.
Oh yeah.
And then also the second reason is because Queen's Gambit.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Queen's Gambit took his life away. So he just stay in the office and play chess all the time. But the thing is, he just doesn't play. He doesn't really just play chess. He play it, and then he will sit down. He rewatch the match or the game, and then he analyze it.
Oh, interesting.
Yep, and then he will experiment different openings. Just like he mentioned in Skip the Line. Like in episode 686 when he talked to History Hyenas, he actually sort of break down how he used the skip the line techniques to improve his chess. And he also mentioned how he burned out from the article.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So Skip the Line's coming out Tuesday, I believe. As of this recording, February 23rd.
Right. Yeah, February 23rd. It's probably just right when this drops, whoever that hasn't buy the book, go buy the book. My name is in there. I think your name is in there too, I think.
Yeah, both of our names were acknowledged. We're special thanked.
And and if you haven't listened to the episodes, my favorite learning techniques by James, you should definitely listen to it, and because you can actually apply, you can learn so much from the episodes, and you can apply those in your day to day life and living.
That's right.
And also the other episode that I really like, and I somehow got not involved, but I somehow got pulled into the episode. It's the short squeeze with GameStop.
Oh yeah, the GameStop episode. That probably had the most downloads of anything recently, just because of the how pertinent the topic was at the time. And I'll tell you, Jay, I had a lot of friends that were texting me all throughout that week asking me what the heck was going on, and I felt like I had the inside info because I had already listened to you and James explain it and had edited that all together, but it hadn't been released yet. So I felt like I had a day's worth of the best info on what the heck a short squeeze was and why this is happening.
Wait, the question is, why did your friend reach out to you and ask you about that? Like, do you know anything about stocks?
They know that I know enough smart people who know about things that talk professionally.
Right.
That's our job, is professional.
Yep,
Listen to smart people talk. Part of it is to absorb what they're saying and regurgitate it as party banter.
Great.
This is such a valuable service for all business owners, big businesses, small businesses, doesn't matter. I wish I had this in the many different businesses that I've started. Sometimes it seems like your business is humming, but then suddenly you don't understand it. You're starting to fall behind. You're not understanding where your costs are, where your revenues are, where your payments are. Teams are buried in all sorts of like BS work, and you can't seem to close the books. So you need like one dashboard, one source of truth. I'm jealous of this business, NetSuite from Oracle, of course, NetSuite by Oracle. I wish I'd come up with this idea. It's a brilliant concept to have all your business intelligence on one dashboard. This is why you need to know these three numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. So 37,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. 1, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all of your key performance indicators, your KPIs, in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow, all in one place. So right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance, absolutely free, at netsuite.com/James. That's netsuite.com/James to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/James. You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players, and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get two memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply.
To be honest, the episode is all accidental. So like, we sat down, James and I sat down. The episode is 682, Stock Lessons 101. What happened to the GameStop short squeeze and why? So we were supposed to record something entirely different. We were supposed to record my favorite things, his movies, his favorite movie list. So we sat down. I was looking at the news, and I'm a gamer, so that's why I pay attention to GameStop. And then I like meme and stuff, so I just pay attention to like pop culture stuff. And then I just saw this thing, like this stock went from like $1 to like $500, and so I just asked James, what the hell happened to that? Like, why is that happening? And James is like, you know what? Let's do an episode on this. You can ask me questions, and I will answer everything about the GameStop short squeeze. Like, before the episodes, I didn't know there's a term called short squeeze. I thought it's just stocks and options. That's the only thing I know. And then I went into it, and I'm like, oh, so what happened there? Did all of a sudden a million people just start buying GameStop stocks? And then James is like, the father figure sat me down and be like, listen, Jay, I know your English is not good. Let me explain it to you slowly. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, so he basically just broke down like what exactly happened during GameStop short squid. He has the unfair advantage of knowing what's really happening behind the scene because he was a head function manager for a long time before he's who he is today.
And a day trader before that.
Oh yeah, and he was day trader, and he got rejected by who is that guy that's in jail right now?
Mr. Bernie Madoff.
Yeah, Mr. Bernie Madoff, and he still get rejected by Bernie Madoff even though when he's in jail. Yeah, so that's probably one of the other favorite episodes of mine for the past 2 months.
That was incredible. I really enjoyed the 3-part series we did at the end of last year with Angela Duckworth.
Right.
The Grit trilogy. That was only supposed to be, I think,
one episode,
one recording,
Yep.
one episode, and in typical fashion, there were so many tangents in the middle that they really didn't finish. The conversation
Right.
needed about 3 hours to resolve itself over the course of a month. But
that series is great because for me, at least for me, I felt like it's a debate between the 10,000 hour rules versus the 10,000 experiments rules. What makes it so interesting, that 3-part series, that's episode 664, 666, and 673. Yeah, because she wanted to wait for the school to finish so she can focus. Yeah, what really interesting about that is somehow like James and Angela has this chemistry. Like they were just both very curious about each other. And they're just very curious about each other's thought and the principles. And James always, and I felt like James did mention this before. I felt like that became a trilogy is mainly because that article came out and then everyone is talking about New York has grit. So somehow the book, the Angela's books grit just stuck in his head. So that's what
that's right.
he thought about for that
That's
2
right.
months. Yep.
Yeah, Angela is is synonymous with the term grit, and apparently, so is New York City.
Yeah, and also like, and the coolest thing is about I felt like for that trilogy I liked the last part the most because they talk about when do you know how to quit, when do you know you should quit,
And when should you quit?
yeah, and when should you quit? Like
No, and when
for
should
me-
you quit? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
oh, I should quit right now. Well, the thing is that for me, like one, I didn't always recognize when should I quit, and second, sometimes I quit way too early.
Mm.
I just can never find the right time. I can never find the right time. Like, like sometimes, for me, I encounter this almost every day because, like I play games, right? So like games is matches. We going back and forth, there's competitive. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. And sometimes you just, in this game, you just like, I don't know if this game's going to end and I don't think I can win. So like a lot of times it's like, screw this. I'm just going to give up right now. Or sometimes I'm like, maybe there's maybe we can turn it around. So I just not good at recognizing the sign or the clue, like whether I will win or not.
Okay.
Or whether I should quit or not.
And do you think
Yeah.
you're getting better at it now?
I definitely getting better at it right now, to be honest. Because you only have a limited amount of time to do so many things.
Mhm.
So I'm like, well, I don't want to sit here for 2 hours, just wait for me to lose, But if I quit right now, I might be able to get another game in,
All right.
Yeah, we're adult, we have responsibility, so
How many games you get in is a
Welcome to
very
adulthood.
important thing to do.
it's very important. Yeah, because winning a game gives you the dopamine and make me feel good about myself, so that I can tell myself I'm living a good life, All right. So we talk about Cal Fussman, we talk about the learning technique, and we talk about grit. Anything else that you can think of for the past couple months that you think people should go back and listen it to?
The Adam Grant podcast got a lot of listens. Everyone is talking about Adam Grant in February. His new book, what was it called? Think Again.
Right, yeah. So let everyone know it's episode 684, Adam Grant, what do you need to think again when you're rethinking? I actually can relate to this a lot. So I don't know about you. I rely on my instinct way too much. Like even when I'm, I'm from Malaysia, we have tests almost every other day, you know. So, you know, like Asian and tests that we just left tests and exams. So like even when I have those tests, like yeah, I would still study, but like every time I look at the questions, I would go with my first instinct first. Like I wouldn't think about it. I would go with my first instincts. Sometimes I get good grades, sometimes I get bad grades, you know, because I never think again. And I also am the kind of person that hate to triple check. Double check. I would do double check sometimes. I hate to triple check. It's not because I'm lazy. It's because of my ego. I don't want to triple check and I realize, okay, I did this wrong. And I'm like, that does that mean I'm bad at this thing? You know, so like I just hate that feeling of like, oh, I caught myself giving some wrong answer. I'm not sure if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You know, this book, the subtitle was The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know.
Right.
And it brings to light two major maybe mottos that were put forth, at least during my childhood, which was trust your gut. But the other topic is always feeling compelled to give an answer even when you don't know the answer. This book talks about both of those.
Right. Even isn't that also one of James' big principle when he invests in the company? Like when he talk about this all the time. James talk about this all the time. Is when he invests in a company or look at a company, he will talk to the CEO, and then he will only invest if the CEO will actually give the answer of I don't know. Let me look into it, and I will get back to you. Because because like no one out there know all the answer. If you give them a questions and they don't know the answer, and if they are big enough to admit they don't know the answer, that means you know they will do a decent job or they are honest person, you know, to run the company.
A really strong point.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and also like if for me at least, if there's anything money involved, there's high stakes for me. You know, especially if you know, I came from a family that it's not well off. So like I was drilled when I was younger, like I was drilled that, you know, every penny is important. So before we close this out, I have one last episode that I really like. You might not learn anything from me. I just love listening to this as episode 680, Son of Extraterrestrial Life Beyond Earth with Avi Loeb. That's great because you know, I love sci-fi. I can't imagine a world that's no alien. I mean, like when I saw this, I'm like, heck yeah! I wish that alien came down and say hi to us. I mean, not conquer us. You know, not like what's the movie with Tom Cruise?
War of the Worlds.
Yeah. So like it's not like that, but I wish they would just come down and say hi, hey. And we were shook hand, and all of a sudden, a million years knowledge just rushed into my head, and I know everything. You know. And then
that sounds pretty nice.
Yeah, and it's great, you know, like at least, you know, that's something for other people to talk about, you know, like the episode is also a great cocktail conversation.
Sure. Learning, you'd be able to say things like talk about solar sails and all sorts of, you know, if you've listened to any of the early Brian Keating episodes, it makes perfect sense how you can use light particles to push something in a direction in a way that wind happens within an atmosphere.
Right. I felt like for all the Brian Keating one, I should just name it as the Cocktail Parties series. You know, like all the conversation that James has with Brian Keating, almost all the episodes have cocktail conversations worthy points.
How about this? Cocktail Weenies with Brian Keating.
Cocktails Weenies with Brian Keating. To be honest, I'm sure Brian will love that. Brian will be like, yeah, sure. Go for it, man. Do your thing.
Kosher Franks with Brian.
Well, I think that's what Brian would say too. Anything you want to add to before we wrap this up?
I love you, buddy.
I love you too, and we both love James, even though he's not here with us today.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still alive. He's pretty much still alive. But yeah, it's just not in this episode. Anyway, you know, thanks Nathan for being here, and thanks everyone for listening to the companion podcast for the James Altucher Show. So every month we will do you know, probably we'll just talk about a couple episodes that we liked for that month. And then, you know, in case you missed the episodes, you listen to this, and then you can go back to the episodes. You can revisit them, or you can, you know, listen to them again. You know, you know what they say, like sometimes when you listen to a podcast the first time, you only take in 10% of the knowledge. So if you listen to again, you get another 10%. So
That's right.
thank you so much, Nathan. Thank you so much for doing this. And thank you so much for listening to the very first episodes of the company podcast for James Altucher Show with Jay and Nathan the Great.
Ooh.
All right. Thank you.
The McNugget Buddies are back. But this time, they got a fresh look as part of the new Kerwin Frost box at McDonald's. We're talking all new buddies, dressed head to toe in the freshest fits, all designed by the artist Kerwin Frost. So when you order the Kerwin Frost box with your choice of 10-piece McNuggets or a Big Mac, you'll get one of the flyest McNugget buddies to go with it. Think you can collect them all? Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time while supplies last.